At 8 a.m. on a freezing Tuesday morning, my credit card was declined at the grocery checkout over a $40 bag of groceries. Standing there with the cashier staring at me, I pulled out my phone and called my father. His voice came through the line, calm, cold, and dripping with smug authority. "I canceled all your cards," he told me. "You're trained to follow orders, not manage money. It's time you learned your place in this family." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply put my phone back in my pocket, walked out to my car, and drove straight to the bank. 3 hours later, my father had 32 missed calls on his phone, and his entire life's work was frozen solid. He thought he was cutting off a dependent daughter. He didn't realize who actually owned the empire he was standing on. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into what happened next, drop a comment below with the city or country you're watching from. I love seeing how far our stories reach. Make sure to stay tuned until the very end, because the twist in the final section will completely blow you away. Let's get straight into it. My name is Chloe Cooper. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 6 years, I've served as the head of operations for Cooper Global Logistics. I'm a former Army logistics officer, so when my mother passed away and left the family business in chaos, I hung up my uniform and came home. I didn't do it for fame or fortune. I did it to save my father's legacy from drowning in debt. When my credit card was declined at that grocery checkout, I assumed it was a simple bank glitch. But when I called my father, Arthur Cooper, his tone was far from apologetic. "I canceled all your corporate lines, Chloe," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You've gotten comfortable thinking you run this company, but you're trained to follow orders, not manage money. It's time you learned your place in this family." In the background, I could hear the faint mocking chuckle of Victoria, my stepmother, and her 28-year-old son, Julian. For months, they'd been whispering in my father's ear, pushing him to strip away my authority so Julian could step into my executive position. Arthur thought he was putting me in my place regarding a major real estate deal I had refused to approve for Julian. He assumed I relied entirely on his corporate allowance to survive. He genuinely believed he had just stripped me of my power, leaving me stranded and helpless. He had no idea he had just triggered his own downfall. To understand my father's arrogance, you have to understand how Cooper Global Logistics survived the last 5 years. When I left the military, the company was 6 months away from insolvency. Bad investments and terrible oversight had drained our reserves. I didn't just work 80-hour weeks to fix it. I invested my late mother's entire inheritance directly into restructuring the firm's debt. I streamlined our supply chains, secured military transport contracts, and rebuilt our corporate credibility from the ground up. Meanwhile, Arthur sat in his corner office, accepting awards, playing golf with board members, and taking full public credit for the turnaround. I let him. He was my father, and I believed in family loyalty. Then came Victoria. She married my father 2 years ago, bringing along her son Julian, a man whose entire resume consisted of dropped college courses and failed startup ideas. Within months, Victoria began chipping away at my father's trust in me. She convinced him that I was too cold, too rigid, and that Julian possessed the creative vision the company truly needed. Julian wanted a 6-figure executive salary, an unlimited expense account, and control over our prime commercial real estate assets. When I refused to sign off on Julian's reckless real estate development plan last week, Arthur took it as a personal insult to his authority. He believed that cutting off my cards would break my spirit, force me to apologize, and bring me to my knees. He thought money was his weapon. What Arthur, Victoria, and Julian failed to realize was that I never relied on his permission. As I sat in my car outside that grocery store, listening to the dial tone, I didn't feel panic. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. I started the engine and drove straight towards the bank. The glass doors of Commercial First Bank parted as I walked into the quiet, marble-floored lobby. I didn't wait in line. Instead, I walked straight to the executive office at the back, where Mr. Henderson, the senior commercial bank manager, was reviewing files. He had managed our corporate accounts for over 20 years and knew every detail of our financial history. When he looked up and saw my face, his warm smile